Hello James, welcome to our workspace. This is actually my kitchen. It's part of my kitchen anyway. It's a little video to help you get set up with this Zact Zinamp active cartridge system. So you've got one of these, or you've got a blue one. I think I bought a red one because I'm a cheapskate. But I just wanted to show you how this all fits together, but also how to do the A/B test really. This is kind of, if we're doing a comparison of with and without. Well, it's really without and then with. So this is the little Zact amplifier board. You make different ones depending on whether you want to fit it on the back of the cartridge or inside the head shell. We make one that goes in the back of this head shell here as well. It has some components on it, as you can see. We don't reveal exactly what they are or what they do, but it's a buffer amplifier basically. It's a current buffer and it's powered by the phono stage. So a very small voltage and current is passed up the turntable, the tone arm wires. Not enough to cause any problems or damage to the turntable, but there's no modification required, there's no additional wiring. And this just slips on the back of the cartridge, and I'll show you that in a moment. But it has a way up, so you can see the way up the writing is. Those two little holes that are at the bottom. That little chip is at the top. So the cartridge is upside down. You'll notice as well I've put the cover on the cartridge to stop any damage to the old needle there, or the old diamond. So I'm just trying to hold the camera and do this. Literally just, whoop. Excuse me a second. The board just slips on the back like that and is held on with friction. It goes on quite easily. It's not tight and it's just enough to make electrical contact, which is all you need. If we make these things too tight, we get a risk that we can damage the pins on customers' cartridges, and that's pretty disastrous really, because we end up with liabilities. But you'll see as well that there are colour markings as well for the relevant tone arm wires. But the first part of the test is going to be without, so I'm just going to remove that and I'm going to fit the cartridge without the Zact board into this head shell. Obviously, I think you said you don't have a detachable head shell, but it works exactly the same way. I think it's best to, we'll get to that in the second part, but I think it's best to put the board in the head shell and then put the cartridge in to the head shell, but we'll get to that in a second. So anyway, we're going to do part one in a second, which is just the regular test, so without. Back soon. Okay, welcome back. Something I've noticed about these Autophon cartridges is that the pins on the back of them are quite thick, which means they may stretch the spade connectors on your turntable arms, your tone arm. That said, when you come to swap over to this, I've put some extra solder on the pins to fatten them up, because doing an A/B test like this, you don't want to be opening out and then re-crimping the spade connectors on your tone arm wires, because, well, it wears them out, doesn't do them much good. So I've tried to make that the transition between testing without the Zact board and testing with it as untraumatic for your turntable as possible. So I'm just going to screw this together and make another little video. So there's nothing magical, mysterious about this. It's just a bog standard, or a relatively good bog standard cartridge in a detachable head shell. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an A/B test as well with this. I haven't actually done one yet, but with this particular cartridge. But I would say listen to a couple of albums that you know very, very well. Listen to them back to back, and then switch over. So yeah, we'll next little video snippet, I'll show you how to fit the Zact board and what to expect with the sound. So yeah, see you in a sec. So for the first test, you want it on MM, so connect the turntable cables to the MM input, which is the first one on the left. And that's it basically. This is on one of my old JVC QLF4 turntables from the 70s. I like these. They're quartz lock and they're very reliable. Built in the early 80s, probably late 70s, early 80s. But yeah, just give it a couple of spins and see what you think. All right, thanks. Okay, so you will have noticed the deliberate continuity error in the last little segment. That is the stylus cover was still on. As it will remain for the rest of this demonstration, just for safety. So I'm going to show you how to attach, once again, this ZACT Zinamp Active Cartridge System buffer amplifier to your cartridge. So the writing indicates which way up. Let me just do this quickly. You can see what I'm doing because the cartridge and the board are behind the phone that I'm using to record this. I can't actually see what I'm doing. It's like robotic surgery. There you go. So it just goes on like that. Oops. I had to watch a man struggle. I'll tell you what, watch this. Come back in a second. So it looks like that. Okay. So I mentioned previously there's kind of solder on the pins to bolster them to make them thicker. You should find that when you fit your existing cables, if they fit the Autoform cartridge, you should get a reasonable fit on the pins. So I'll just put those on and put the camera back on. 1 second. Okay, these are now attached, as you can see. Something to point out is that it really does matter that the correct colours go to the correct pins, because this is electrical. If any of those are the wrong way around, nothing bad can happen. There's not enough current or enough voltage to do any damage, but you just won't hear anything. I think one of your colleagues who tried this before had a similar problem, but it's fine. But you'll notice that each of these is colour matched, except the green wire, which goes to a black piece of heat shrink around that pin, because I don't have any green heat shrink, and you should be able to deduce if the other three are correct, then that one's okay. So that's that one. Okay, back in a moment. Okay, that's it fitted. I think with a fixed tone arm, or sorry, a fixed head shell I should say, you'll find it easier to fit the board, the little ZACT board, to the tone arm wires and then connect the cartridge to the board and then screw them up like that. That's my advice. Anyway, I'm just going to put this on the turntable now. Okay, the only thing we need to do now is select the ZACT input, and you want the power off. Any change to the cables on the back, especially with ZACT, you want to do with the power off, and the reason is ZACT has a small voltage and a current in it, like I said, and disconnecting the cables from the back of the phono stage will cause a thump, quite a loud crack actually, from the phono stage through to your main amplifier. So you don't want to damage your precious speakers or your amplifier. So really just be careful when you're doing any kind of change to the ZACT wiring. Do it with the power off. You can change the selector switch with the power on, that's fine. Nothing bad will happen. But it's just disconnecting the cables from, or connecting them to or from the ZACT output with the power on, and everything connected up, you will hear quite a loud crack. So just avoid that if you can. All right. Okay, so back to business. Everything's set up. So phono stage on. This is one of our solid state phono stages actually, so it's exactly the same as the one you have there, but solid state. I can't tell them apart, but don't tell anyone I said that. Okay, main amp on. Zoom out a little bit. I have a fairly unassuming setup here at home. It's just I don't have mountains and mountains of gear, but my listening space is my living room here. I have 2 pairs of speakers because I'm weird, but it does work in this room particularly well. So you're not going to be able to hear anything on the phone, but one of the things I wanted to point out actually is the difference you'll notice with the Zact system attached. So before I play anything, I'm going to run you through this. When you turn the volume up, obviously with the phono stage, you can hear noise and hum and things. When you turn the volume up full with Zact, it is, I mean, I don't know if you can make that out on the phone. I'm not going to put the phone up to the speakers, it's a bit misleading, but you will notice it's a bit quieter than regular MM and less hissy, and it's certainly less hissy than MC, which is why we like it so much. Just generally the noise floor is very, very low with this. It's something like an extra 6 dB down. Anyway, there are some other things that you may notice, but I don't want to put ideas in your head, but these are the things it should do. I mentioned the noise, and that's because the cables the turntable cables are no longer acting like aerials because they've got a buffer amplifier at the end of them, and this means that the impedance in the path to the phono stage is now much lower. What else? When you listen to the music, you may notice the stereo separation is better, and that's because there's less crosstalk now between the 2 channels as the cables run next to each other. You certainly get this in the tone arm. It's called capacitive crosstalk, but because we've lowered the impedance, the capacitance is no longer an issue, so you're not getting capacitive crosstalk. You may also notice that things sound a little bit less smeary, and this is because the phase alignment of the music is now as it should be. Moving magnet cartridges tend to cause a bit of phase shift because of the way they work. This eliminates that, and that's one of the things we like as well. So what else? There's another thing. That I can't remember what it is. There's 4 things it does. One is noise. One is crosstalk. One is phase shift, like I said. Yes, the other one is it gets rid of a frequency hump that you get with moving magnet cartridges. Moving magnet cartridges tend to have a bit of a hump in them at about 15 kilohertz. Again, this is due to the relationship between the capacitance in the cable and the output impedance of the cartridge. But you should notice the frequency response is a bit flatter, so it sounds less, I don't know, less splashy perhaps, just a little more like you might expect from an MC. But I hope that what you hear just has an edge, at least some sort of edge on what you hear from the moving magnet without. This is Dan Reed Network, I think, from 1991. God. So again, you're not really going to hear anything remarkable on the phone here, but that's it. Enjoy.